What's going on, guys? It's Colton from the Cornermen podcast. I'm just putting this little supplemental podcast out to give an update and talk about a few things that may not be in the news by the time we really are able to put together another full crew podcast. We've just been really busy. A few of the guys are training, getting ready for an event they got coming up, so we definitely don't want to take any time away from them with that. So when that's over, we should be back in full swing. Hopefully, by then we can get a better audio setup, and get running. If not, it'll be in the future. Definitely wanted to talk about a few things that are going on in the MMA world right now. One was Brock Lesnar fell in his drug test. That was a big deal. As of when I'm recording this, there's no tests out. There's no B test saying that he didn't fail. This was just a one-off thing. So far, Mark Hunt's said he wanted half his purse. Now he wants all his purse. And that's pretty much it. I haven't seen much else on it. That was one thing I wanted to touch on, because while it's not the biggest surprise, it is kind of funny that he talked all this trash about John Jones and then literally fails a test. Not for the same things. I still personally haven't seen what he failed for. I'm really curious. I'm waiting for that to come out. But kind of a funny turn of events if you're Brock Lesnar. Trash talking Mark Hunt and his possible release or large payday. I'm curious to see how they handle that, because that's definitely bad for business going into this transition of the UFC getting new owners. That's definitely not something they want, especially after the first thing to pop out is be your biggest guy failed and you did nothing for the guy that he lost to, or he beat rather. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. UFC 200 to me overall actually didn't perform quite as well as I hoped. I think they said that UFC 100 sold more. Even on top of it, this card to me was more stacked until John Jones pulled out. But the whole card was crazy. It was a great card. On paper, some of the fights didn't really play out so well. But I'm looking forward to the cards that are coming up, because 202 is an insane card. I hope that we're ready to go so we can break that down together. That is a crazy good card. But, one of the first things I wanted to talk about was Brock and Mark Hunt, because I felt that this might not be out of the news. It may be past. Really just curious about it. I need to get more facts on it, so hopefully they come out soon and it doesn't just get put under the table. But I did mention the sale of the UFC, so one thing that I can move on to from there would be that Rogan stated that if the UFC sold, he wouldn't stay. And I'm curious if they're going to throw big bucks at him to stay, or if they replace him. And if they replace him, who do they replace him with? We have this talk as a group of guys on the podcast, in the gym, regularly. If you replace Rogan, who do you get? We've gone as far from Dominic Cruz, Brian Stan, Chael Sonnen would probably be good, although I don't think any of us have really mentioned him. Joe Rogan himself threw Chael in there as a guy to do it, which would be very cool. I'm not a big John Anik fan as far as listening to him commentate. Obviously, he's more of a color role than he is an analyst, but, we've heard Rashad, DC, lots of people to be thrown in there. So it's really exciting to see who they might get. My big toss-up, I really would like to see Stan make it up there. I like Brian Stan. I think he could do a good job. I really, that's a conversation I can't wait to get in with everybody. But I want to know what you guys think. If you watch this, who you would like to see take over that role. Then we have a couple great cards coming up in the next 2 weeks, which I know we probably won't be able to break down. One of the cards actually falls on the night of the event that Jacob and Screech are going to have their matches. And the first card is UFC Fight Night Chicago this coming Saturday, July 23rd. Holly Holm and Valentina Shevchenko. That's a pretty good fight. Shevchenko is 1-1 in the UFC. First fight she won, she beat, I think it was Sarah Kaufman. Second fight, she lost to Amanda Nunes. To decision, both decision fights, decent fights. Now she's moving up into a bigger test, former champ of Holly Holm. I don't have a lot to say about this fight. I think Holly can take it. We're gonna have to see what this jiu-jitsu she's been doing does for her. I know Shevchenko doesn't mind going to the ground and having a good ground fight. I know she doesn't mind it. She also she'll stand and trade with you too. So we'll see how it goes. She's got a little light-footed Muay Thai stance when she gets loaded up, everything like that. And everybody, you should know Holly Holm, unless you've been living under a rock and you didn't see what she did to Ronda. But another great fight on that card is Edson Barbosa and Gilbert Melendez, which I'm looking now, and I had no idea Gilbert Melendez wasn't ranked at 155. It's kind of surprising. Well, I guess not really, but nevertheless, good card. Fucker. Jump. That's going to be a great fight. That's going to be a good war. I like to see who pulls out of that one. Edson is really more on an uprise right now with his career. He's put together some good wins recently. One of the bigger ones being Anthony Pettis. And Gilbert, to be honest, I remember he lost to Eddie. He lost to Eddie, Anthony Pettis, and Ben Henderson. Out of his last 4 fights, he only beat Diego Sanchez. So I can see why he dropped out of the top. But, 2 guys were former champions, and that was a pretty big fight. But that'll be a great fight. Those are my 2 favorite ones on that card. There is other notable fights. Felice Herrig is fighting Kaylin Curran. I'm not really familiar with Kaylin, but a lot of people like Felice. I know she's a more popular female fighter. Off the top of my head, I don't really see anything else. Alex Oliveira and James Moonsari, that's a decent fight. We'll see how that one works out throughout the whole card. Then we move from there to UFC 201, which is a pretty good card. It's got a couple of fights that I'm excited for. You got Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley. Great fight. You got Rose Namajunas, Carolina, I don't even know how to say her last name. I'm not gonna lie. It looks like Kawaki Wicks. I butchered it. She'll forgive me. Matt Brown, Jake Ellenberger. That should be a really good fight. I'm curious to see how Matt Brown comes back after that Damian Maia loss. Then you have a fight that I am so excited for. Last minute fight, you got Ross Pearson and Jorge Masvidal. That's a great fight. Ross's last outing, Will Brooks, loss. Masvidal's last outing, Lorenz Larkin, which was also a loss for him as well. In both fights, you could tell those guys wanted to perform a little better, and just didn't. It just slipped away from them. But man, I'm really excited for that fight. I'm almost more excited for Pearson and Masvidal than I am for every other fight, with the exception of the title fight. Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley's gonna be crazy. So such a good fight. I'd really like to break that down more. I wish everybody was here with me, or at least one other guy. But I think Robbie Lawler takes that fight. I should have done the other card. I think Home and I think Barbosa's going to take it. I'm rooting for Gilbert, but I think Edson takes it. This card, I've got Lawler, Rose, Matt Brown, and Ross Pearson winning the 4 fights I talked about. Really, really a good card. I'm excited to see what comes from these cards. I mean, the fights that I normally get excited for are the ones that you kind of know what you're going to get, and if it plays out that way, then you're going to be happy. That's how I feel about Masvidal and Pearson. I also like, speaking of Lorenz Larkin, I like that he stepped in to fight Neil Magny. I can't remember who pulled out on Magny. I don't remember who it was, but man, did they not make a great fight off of that. And seeing this now, another big thing to talk about was Rory Macdonalds now being a free agent. Obviously, this is one of the biggest free agents to really actually test the waters and say he was going to test the waters. And I'm kind of curious to know what he wants to do now that the UFC sold, and what they might do. I wouldn't be surprised if they abolish the Reebok deal, or try to take more control over it, fix it a little better. I'm kind of hoping that's the route. The Reebok's had a lot of problems, but I think their biggest problem is lately nothing fits. The clothes are sheer, technically, especially the women's. You get a lot of see-through bottoms and tops. Those things. Uriah Faber had a problem with his pants falling, and I can't remember if it was Roy Nelson or Derek Lewis, but I know when we were watching that, one of their 2 pants was falling down as well. And I can't say that's 100% Reebok, but I know Uriah Faber said that they just didn't fit, and their smaller size was way too small, and the next size up was too big, and he couldn't get it down. So I'm assuming that might be the same case for that fight. Anyway, back to Rory Macdonald. Scott Coker said that they're interested in him. They're talking to his management, and there's nothing imminent right now. They're just talking, and they said talking's going well. I'm really curious to see where Rory lands. A lot of guys don't like him. I'm a big fan of the guy. I have been for a long time. I'm a little worried about that nose. It just keeps breaking. I know he broke it a few times in training. I'm hoping he heals up, takes a little time off. I know he just had a kid, so I think he's going to take a little time off, see where he lands, sign a new deal, and get right back in there. And that'll be a great, either way he lands, could be great. So, as long as we get to see the guy back in there. That's really just quick touching on everything. I wanted to give a quick update, talk a little news. Maybe I'll put another one of these out. It may not be on the Cornermen. It may just be a regular thing. I'd also like to... I saw that there's going to be another local event soon, so I'd kind of like to see if we can't get some of the guys fighting on the card. If any of you guys watch this and you'd like to come and be a guest, or even have... I'd like to interview some of you guys and get some insight to your camps, what's going on, get a little info, do some stuff with the local guys. Really get some of the fighters in there and get you guys on a podcast, hanging out, or even get an interview. So, we'll see how things go, but we'll be back soon, and thanks for watching.